Missy, I'm unable to see the panel. This is Cindy.
Showing when Commissioner Manus, can you hear me?
Sometimes.
I can hear you.
Okay, so we lost you all when we were doing roll call, so we're going to, I'm just gonna go back real quick. Cindy, I called the meeting to order at, I think it was still 9:05. So we only missed a minute. It's incredible. Secretary Armijo, can you go ahead and do roll call, please?
Chair Brower,
Present.
Vice Chair Burt. Here. Secretary Armijo is present. Commissioner Ingham,
Here.
Commissioner Koshishillich,
Here.
Commissioner Gibson,
Here.
Commissioner Manus,
Here.
Commissioner Beck, Commissioner Taylor, and Commissioner Carrillo.
Here.
We have a quorum of 8.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Manus and Commissioner Kloskowicz. If you don't mind, when you talk, can you just identify yourself each time, especially if the video is off? We need to make sure that we know who is talking for the record.
Okay, thank you.
With that, let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Can Commissioner Gibson, let's just do double duty here, and we'll just move right into the salute.
Missy, I can't hear them. Unable to hear.
Sorry, Cindy, every time I lose internet, it self mutes. So I'm focused on getting it unmuted. You didn't miss anything.
Thank you, Missy.
I wonder if there is a way for CSD staff, if somebody has a cell phone that we could hotspot off of, maybe, so it's more stable for Missy. Since we're on, still looks like everyone's here. I'm going to keep on moving through some of the items that we have. Let's move into the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote because we have some people not here with us in person.
All righty. Vice Chair Burt.
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham,
Yes.
Commissioner Koshishillich,
Yes,
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Lost the audio.
You're leaving at 10:15 today, is that what you're saying? All right, Cindy, can you hear me?
Yes,
All right, so
Sir.
I don't know if you were here with us or not for the last part of our roll call vote for the approval of the agenda, but it did pass unanimously 8-0.
thank you. I can't hear again. Commissioner Manus, you as well?
Same thing on my end.
Yeah,
Same
this
thing
is,
here with Sharon.
No one's talking right now.
oh,
Oh.
good.
Okay.
They're trying to, they're doing some computer work to try to get a stable internet because the internet in Mabry today is going on and off.
That's
So they're
crazy.
trying to get connected to a different internet so that we have a more stable connection. So we're
Great
not,
idea. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners Manus and Kloskasich, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Great. And Cindy, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. We did no business while we were, the only business we did was to work on the internets here. And so we're back on and we're going to move on now that we approved the agenda. Missy, I'm not sure if we have anybody who signed up for open. All right, no one for open forum. So Commissioner Gibson, you might hit your dinner date tonight. All right. School highlights and spotlight. This is an opportunity for commissioners and CSD staff to lift up awesome work that we're hearing in our schools. We'll start with our commissioners. If you have any bright spots. Commissioner Gibson, then Vice Chair Burt, and then Commissioner Carrillo.
Yes, I'd like to recognize that there were 2 Alma de Arte students that received the Future Generation Award at the 36th Doña Ana Arts Council Community Arts Awards, and that was Madison Smith and Cora Richardson. And this past Monday, Dolores Huerta was in town, and she actually visited La Academia Dolores Huerta. So that was quite a treat for those students to be able to, if any of you have had an opportunity, she is quite an individual and I've had the honor of being able to spend some time with her. So I'm sure those students are thrilled that she took the time to spend with them last Monday.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Burt.
I just wanted to say, I think this is kind of good for all schools and a big school highlight, but I just wanted to say congrats for PCS&M for officially getting that CSP grant awarded to them. Enormous amount of money to go out to schools, and really excited for them and for the growth of charters in our state.
Thank you. Congratulations. Commissioner Carrillo.
Big shout out to the Masters program, which is one of our charters up here in Santa Fe. It's on the campus of the community college. For those that don't know, and I didn't even know this until I was on this commission, Masters is actually an acronym for mathematics, art, science, technology, engineering, reading, and service. And service is a really important part of what they do, and they do it on Fridays. And it's not something optional. If you're going into the master's program, you are choosing that service is going to be a part of your high school education. They have, there's a great article in the New Mexican featuring them. They're a spotlight school. They have grad rates, math and English science proficiency significantly higher than the state average. And one of the things that really, I think, contributes to their success is trusting students to make choices and be more independent through their school day. And just being on the college campus gives students, I think, a sense of maturity, if you will, in choices that they make and how they approach their education. And I would just say to, I don't know if anybody's on Zoom, you know, it's something to look at in terms of the way you approach, attract your kids to different schools. And I particularly want to call out districts for trying to be more innovative in their programming to make things relevant and engage their students. So the head learner there is Carla Moskovitz. This is her first year. And then Tina Morris, and both have been in education for decades, and both have just done great work. Tina actually used to work with the district here in Santa Fe. So big shout out to the master's program.
Commissioner Ingham.
Well, I guess I would like to do a shout out for, sorry.
Commissioner,
for the
cannot
School
hear
of
you.
Yeah, Cindy, I just asked him to move it closer.
Okay, just wanted to give some accolades to the School of Dreams in Las Lunas. They are having an event on November 1st where they're going to show, be describing, I guess they have a new building that is going to be, they have the funding for a new building to get started on quite a aggressive CTE program. And they're, got a lot of exciting things in the works. I just talked to Mike last night and I just wanted to invite all you to that gathering on November 1st at 9 o'clock on their campus.
Thank you. I have two items to build off of the CSP grant. This is not one of our schools, but Siembra Leadership is a school in Albuquerque. They also received a specific grant for $2 million. So just thinking about how much funding is coming into our state that's going to support good things for our young people. This is pretty amazing. So congrats to public charter schools, to Siembra and Jackie Baldwin, the leader over there. And I also wanted to lift up, this is not a school, but a charter leader, Kara Bobroff, who is Navajo and Lakota and the founder of Native American Community Academy, also has been my boss for the last 9 years. She has received this year, this week is the National Indian Education Association's convening in Albuquerque. And so NIEA has acknowledged her as with the Community Service Award for this year. And so if our schedule permits, I'm going to a celebration later on this afternoon if we're able to move things. I'm not putting any pressure on any commissioners to move forward, but we got some dinners, we got some, yeah. But I just want to lift up Kara as like a pretty amazing charter leader, a pretty amazing school leader. She was the interim Secretary of Education as well as the Deputy Secretary of Identity, Equity, and Transformation, and really led a lot of the work around Martinez Yazzie implementation for the state. And so just a lot of great things. So I just wanted to congratulate Kara. Director Chavez.
Yeah, so the Santa Fe Reporter has put out Best of Santa Fe and want to recognize a couple of charter schools are in the mix with all public and private schools. 2 charter schools, Academy for Technology and the Classics got second best, and Turquoise Trail, one of the state authorized charter schools, got third best charter. Want to just give a shout out to Turquoise Trail. According to the Santa Fe Reporters Best of 2023, also the school was one of 7 recipients of the state to be awarded the New Mexico Outdoor Learning Startup Grant. And the grant is going to be used to build an outdoor agricultural classroom that will help support animal science, agriculture, literacy, and SEL endeavors. So big shout out to Stephanie and her team, Joe, Dan Lovato, the middle school principal. Thank you for sending that information. I encourage all charter schools to let us know when they get recognized, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Some great spotlights that we're bringing into our space today. Let's move into the consent agenda. Item number 5.
Move to approve the consent agenda?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second to the motion. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, let's move into our roll call vote. Secretary Armijo.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham?
Yes?
Commissioner Klasicevich? Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Commissioner Manus?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes.
Chair Brower?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Burke? Yes, that passes 8-0, or
Commissioner
7 to 0.
Klostershillich, do you hear us? I think you were on mute, but can you unmute yourself?
Passes 7 to 0.
Great. I don't see you're on anymore. Okay. Can you ask her to unmute just to? Okay. All right. We didn't pull anything off the consent agenda, so we're going to move on to item number 7, discussion and possible action on 6 Directions Indigenous School Head Administrator change. Do we have anybody from 6 Directions in the gallery? I don't see anybody in there. We did pull this off. We typically would have this, commissioners, on the consent agenda, but because we had a pretty lengthy conversation the last time we discussed the head administrator change, we wanted to make sure we had this on here in case there were any questions from the commission. Dr. Russell?
Thank you, Chair Brower and commissioners. I actually visited 6 Directions when I was in Gallup for the middle college high school renewal visit. And so I met with Ms. Naahe in person on Wednesday. We had a really nice visit, and I told her that if she was able to be here by Zoom, she was welcome to be, but it was not required because the commission had already discussed it previously. And all paperwork is in order. Licensure helped her out, and she's all set.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair Burt?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say kudos to licensure. I know they don't get that ever. So good job, like awesome for licensure to work with her to get it going. So excited for the school to be able to move forward without uncertainty and trying to figure it out. I'm sure that's a good way to start, better way to start the year.
We can entertain a motion. Vice Chair Burt?
I move that the PEC accept the notification from 6 Directions Indigenous School regarding the change of head administrators.
Second.
Great, we have a second. Let's move into discussion of the motion. Seeing none, Secretary Armijo, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ingham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klostershillich, Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Chair Brower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt,
Yes.
and Secretary Armijo votes yes. That passes 7 to 0.
Thank you. I just want to check real quick. Commissioner Klostershillich, have you joined us and do you hear us now? Saw her join the panel, but I don't know. We'll keep on moving forward. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to item number 8. Discussion and possible action on the performance framework. So we're reviewing the performance framework and the business rules as we discussed yesterday. Sorry, my computer is lagging a little bit here, but those are, if somebody could help me out, those are numbers 8, right? 8A and 8B are the 2 documents that we'll be discussing. And then there's 8C is the red line version. So if you like the cleaned up version, it would be 8B.
I think maybe just the performance framework, page 6, for commissioners that weren't here yesterday. That's where we made the change on the performance framework. So if they just wanted to see it, I mean, we did discuss it last month, but because it hadn't been populated into the documents, we chose to move it to this month. So
Julia?
There was just one more change. There was a footnote about the documentation that the Bureau, the Budget Bureau will now do. So that footnote was removed.
oh, okay, sorry. Page 6.
It's 8.
It's 8A, sorry, it's page 6 of 8A, sorry. There is. It's like, no, I'm looking at page 6.
As we pull that up, any questions or comments from the commission?
So just as, so last month, we discussed this potential change, which was adding this, modifying the chart that was initially there, creating the tiers, and there's 4 tiers that have been created. And the significant change is with the Tier 3 designation. In the initial overall evaluation that had been created, there was the third, it wasn't called a tier, but it was on track for renewal with conditions. And there was no indication that there could be a potential for a motion for non-renewal. And after lengthy discussion with the Performance Framework Group and also with the commission, the decision was made that there should be that for schools, for transparency's sake, for schools, they should be aware that there is the possibility that if they fall in that category, they may not be renewed. So the tier system was created, and Tier 3 reads on track for renewal with conditions or possible non-renewal. And it will be clarified through the annual notices that the schools get. But it felt somewhat not fair to schools if they received 4 years of, oh, you're on track for renewal with conditions, and then they come to the meeting and it's like, nope, there's a motion to not renew. So schools are aware throughout the cycle of their contract that there is a possibility if they're falling in Tier 3, it may not be renewed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions about the framework or the business rules? Commissioner Creo.
Not a question, but a comment really. That I don't know how many people are on Zoom or in the participants or whatever, but just reminding people that, I mean, we've been working on this performance framework and the rules for a year and a half, more than a year and a half. And we're in January, it'll be 2 years. And so a lot of the work that Ms. Gibson was discussing, a lot of stuff is done in a work session. So when we bring things up on a Friday and we vote, it's not that we haven't discussed things. We've been really working hard on these things up till this point, and especially in the work session, say yesterday, to fine tune things before we take things to a vote. So that's all.
Thank you.
Ready?
I think so.
Okay.
Commissioner Gibson.
So I move that the PEC adopt the performance framework identified as document 8A in the Google Drive and direct the Charter School Division to make technical cleanup and formatting changes and post the document on the PEC website.
Second.
Second, let's move into discussion of the motion. Seeing none.
I'll just.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Gibson.
Just wanted to say thank everyone for all of this work. I mean, it's been long, too long, but I think we've come out with something that's really great and groundbreaking for not only just for New Mexico, but for charter authorizing.
Thank you for saying that, Commissioner. And I want to also make sure that you and Becca especially can pat yourselves on the back a little bit on this, because I know that you've done a lot of the work on this, and Commissioner Voigt as well. And I know that, and I think that I'll just because I have the pulpit right now, I also think that there's no such thing as a perfect document. There's no such thing. As soon as we make a vote, there's going to be 5 things we're going to that somebody's going to come and talk to us about. And this is the part of the process, but you know, we're going for better effectiveness, and we're going to learn from this. And there's just a lot of great work that's been done in this. So thank you for that. Roll call vote, please.
Just want to slather on more thanks, especially to Ms. Gibson and to Ms. Burt for the time they put in, and for Glenna. And I can't remember the name of the person in Washington right now, who's Naomi, who just helped incredibly. And just the amount of work that you put into this and that we're at this point is huge. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Secretary Amijo, without further comforting to everyone, let's go ahead and take a vote.
All righty. Commissioner Gibson,
Yes. No vote, no.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Sorry.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Chair Brower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt,
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Kloschillich, yes. Commissioner Kloschillich? Nod your head.
Yes, and
All right.
I keep getting cut off and I have to rejoin, so that's what's going on with
Yeah.
me.
We completely understand. Thank you so much. That passes 8-0.
Great, thank you.
I have the business rules one now. I have to do the business.
Okay, great.
I move that the PEC adopt the business rules identified as document 8B in the Google Drive and direct the Charter Schools Division to make technical cleanup and formatting changes and post the document on the PEC website.
Second.
Here we have a second. We're in discussion of the motion. Seeing none, let's move into a roll call vote. Secretary Amijo.
All righty. Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
Chair Brower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt,
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham
Yes.
and Commissioner Kloschillich.
Yes,
That passes 8-0. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all. All right, let's move on to item number 9. Boy, we're on item number 9 already. Should I sit back and pine a little bit or all right, this discussion and possible action on implementation of the PEC rule during renewal cycle. So we just wanted to just clarify and just kind of clean up a little bit of what we need to have in place within some of the structures to make sure that we're in compliance with the rule. And so we wanted to discuss this a little bit. I'm going to provide Vice Chair Burt a little bit of time, but this really, the spirit of this is to make sure that the touch points that we have and the tools and resources that we have are just really in alignment to what our rule asks us to do at this stage.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion for discussion. In creating the record of performance contemplated in NMAC 6.2.9.11, I move that CSD identify in each written renewal recommendation the participating CSD staff members, school employees, and school board members by name, position, and contact information. To prepare for possible hearing processes as outlined in NMAC 6.2.9.16 and 17, I further move that the CSD identify a team lead for each renewal or revocation process who attended site visits related to that school, be knowledgeable about the contents of the recommendations and reports regarding that school, and who can provide witness testimony if needed.
Second.
Let's move into discussion. I thought I saw a bunch over there, but maybe. All right, let's move into a roll call vote then. Secretary Amijo.
Vice Chair Burt,
Yes.
Secretary Armijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham,
Yes.
Commissioner Kloschillich,
yes,
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo,
Yes.
and Chair Brower.
Yes.
That passes 8-0.
All right, item number 10, discussion of possible action on PEC legislation.
Audio issues, sorry.
agenda. Sorry, Cindy, did you miss something?
I missed the totality of what you just said. There was distortion and dropping out.
Okay. I just moved on to item number 10, the PEC legislative agenda. We've been working on this for the last couple of meetings. I know that public charter schools in Mexico within their report during my report, a little bit of some updates as well. I thought it would be more appropriate for them to share that during that time than this time as we are discussing our legislative agenda. Julia.
Just wanted to tell you where we are with the documents. We took the previous legislative items and moved it to a historical document, and we've uploaded that just so that you have that. We will start a new document, but there aren't any items on it yet. So there's not a new document yet, although we have uploaded a document for Commissioner Ingham to speak off of, so.
I'm sorry, the audio is very, very spotty. Major audio issues.
Questions we have from the commission?
Sorry, Chair Brower, this is Cindy again. The audio has now become very, very spotty and very distorted all of a sudden.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
I can.
It might be, Cindy, it might be on your end because I see that Commissioner Manus
I'm getting the
saying
same,
that he could hear me?
same issue. I'm
Okay.
getting the same issue as Cindy.
So am I. This is Sharon Kotchishillich.
Maybe restart the hookup that you currently have, the internet, just restart it.
Okay,
Or
we'll
something.
we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back on.
Thank you.
Gonna reconvene. It's 9:49. Cindy, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we were on item number 10, discussion and possible action on the PEC legislative agenda. We heard some updates from Ms. Barnes. I think from at least the chair point of view, I don't think we need to take any action at this stage. We're going to hear some more information from the public charter schools in New Mexico around some of the things that are coalescing in education that are relevant to our work. And we'll kind of probably talk about this again in November. And then we'll talk about, for Commissioner Gibson as the liaison to the LESC and LFC, there may be some new actions that we might have for her or for Commissioner Ingham as well, if it's specific to facilities. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question about something.
Go ahead, Commissioner Carrillo.
Just because I'm not recalling the item 2 on the legislative agenda, allowing the PEC to approve 3-year charter terms with good clause provided. So the discussion on that we had last time, that was on new contracts. Oh, because we're allowed to do a 3-year on a renewal currently, is that correct? We're not allowed to do a 3-year on a renewal.
Only with an agreement of the, or of the school. And I'm just going to reiterate that this is in the historical memo, so you can read it to see if you want to re-up something again. But this memo is what you've discussed in the past, and yes, well, the language says, it's right there, approval of less than 5 years may be agreed upon between the charter school and the chartering authority. And you'll recall that that was rejected recently, and when it was proposed by the PEC by another school, and then it wasn't allowed because the statute doesn't allow you to unilaterally do it.
So this here then would be allowing us to unilaterally do it, to say, this is what, we're imposing this upon you, essentially, if we want, because if we want them to have a 3-year renewal, because I can't see a school just saying, okay, that sounds great. They're going to fight it.
That was the previous suggestion as well, yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Chavez.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't agree with the 3-year term. It's not helpful for the schools to have such little data. It's not going to be helpful for you to have such little data at renewal. We experienced that once with a school that was up for renewal and there was no data. So shorter terms are really challenging and not best practice.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably have more discussion for these as well. Commissioner Creel, then Commissioner Gibson.
So I would completely disagree, because if it's a renewal, that means they've already had a 5-year contract, which means there should be plenty of data. And certainly enough to say, you know what, we're not really pleased with the direction this is going, so we're going to do a 3-year instead of a 5. And yeah, and when I'm looking at the vote here for this, it was 5-3. So I know that there were a lot of different opinions around this issue.
Commissioner Gibson.
I mean, the data that we receive is the data for the contract term, not prior contract terms. So we don't look at the data from previous, because we're basing the renewal on the data from the term that is up. So, right, so we'd only have 3 years. We'd only have 2 years for that. And several months ago, we had someone from NACSA do sort of an onboarding, and one of the highlights from the NACSA representative was best practices is not shorter terms, because they don't give you the complete picture of a school. That's where our job, through annual reports and letters of concern and the intervention ladder, that's where we have to do our due diligence during the 5-year term, and to revoke if things aren't going as well as they should be.
Commissioners, the other thing that we heard from the national level is that this draconian line between last term performance and current term performance, and only considering current term performance, is unusual. So the fact that a 3-year charter contract doesn't let you look at year 1 of that of data, you would only be looking at 2 years, because you can't look at the last year in the previous term. That doesn't always happen with other authorizers. They look at other terms. They just think about it as a continuous, like you were thinking, Commissioner Carrillo. The school is in existence. There is data from that year. You could look at 3 years, but that's something that is unique here. I don't know that, maybe you would want to add language in any sort of legislative, if you want to do this, add some language that would allow you to consider full 3 years and not just 2.
Since we're not taking any vote today or taking any discussion, let's make this the final thing. And it sounds like we need to talk more about some of these items.
Why don't we talk more about these items? Why would you want to cut it off?
Well, I wasn't cutting it off, Commissioner. I just acknowledged you that you can talk.
No, I know that, but you said, why don't we make
so-
this the last one?
Because I think we've talked about stuff and now we're going back and forth, and I don't know if it's gonna be, if we're gonna resolve anything at this stage. So it sounds like we need to talk a little bit more about this in future meetings. So Commissioner, Creel, go ahead and take the final word here.
On that, the concern would be November is coming up. And even though it's a short session next year, if we want to put something on, just to kind of float it, knowing full well it's going to be for the following session, it's November next month. And so we're running up against a clock to try to do anything and try to find, a senator and a representative to take it on. That would be one concern. And the other is, I don't understand what so if we've a 5-year contract, and then they come back for renewal, doesn't it stand to reason, they don't have data from the first year necessarily, but doesn't it stand to reason that there's 4 years of data for us to look at? I don't get this idea that I don't get what you're saying. There's 4 years of data for us to look at, and if this school is not performing the way they said they would on all sorts of different levels, I mean, I absolutely see the need for 3 years. One of the things I'm looking forward to in the conference in Oakland is I was looking at their sessions. One of them is specifically about this in particular, shorter authorization terms. So that's all for now. Thank you, Chair Brower.
Thank you. Vice Chair Burt.
Yeah, I'll just say I think I'm one of the people that I see both sides. So I'm kind of open. So I'd definitely be interested next month in like what you make sure you go to that session and come talk to us about it. Cause I do also see, I think maybe one of the things that I'm more concerned by then is that schools get a blank slate every 5 years. Like that's kind of crazy. That's insane, actually. Like you don't get a blank slate every 5 years. So if there's a way we could change that, then, and then actually I would probably be very supportive of a 3-year, because then it is a course of a term. And I do want to see change quick. I mean, when schools are held to the fire, they do better. Like it happens. So I'm not too concerned, because then it is okay for the last 4 years, it's been this, and the last 2, there's been no progress, and maybe you're not going to see crazy, you're not going to go from, single digit proficiencies to 50% proficiency, but like to see growth during those couple of years would be a positive thing. But I'm definitely interested in what you learn from that, because I think my mind's open both ways. And so I don't know if that's something Julia can look into, of like, how do we end this? Like, you can't look at last year, like last year doesn't matter, because that actually, the 5th year of terms never matter for a school. They actually don't matter at all. And that's, once again, crazy. And so if we can look into what's the mechanism we have to maybe change that, I'd be more interested in that as a lever for this issue.
Dr. Russell, and then if it's okay, we can move on to the next item. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Going once? Going twice? All right, we're going to move on to item number 11, report from the Charter Schools Division.
Thank you, commissioners. So the first item was a request from the commissioners, and maybe I would ask for, first of all, a little bit of leeway in how we word the requests so that they aren't literally whatever the commissioners said, but that I get to word what I'm going to present. But I was asked to take a look at the Montessori Elementary and Middle School Pre-K program and lottery process. And I know that this is not a discussion with the school because it's my presentation, but in the audience, I just want you to know, a couple people sitting in the audience is the current head administrator, Piper Curry, and the long-standing business manager for the school, Mr. Stan Albright. So they came to listen to the discussion. Immediately after the last PEC meeting, I called the school and had a conversation about the pre-K program and the lottery. I also went to the school's website and I saw that the school currently runs two very separate and unique lottery processes. One for pre-K, which is a pre-K, private pre-K program, and one for the K through 8 school. And those two don't talk to each other, if you will. So if you were a third grader and your sibling was in the pre-K program, you don't get sibling preference. Okay, those are two separate things. If you attended the pre-K, you don't get preference for the K. They are two separate lottery systems and processes. Now, I think that, I went back into our historical records, and this hails back to some previous administrations that were really concerned about a private pre-K. This was prior to ECEC being created and funded to support the many pre-K programs that New Mexico now has and is supporting. And so the concern was about it being private. I think the school is well aware of the fact that there is an ECEC supporting early childhood pre-K programs. They are interested in making it a public program. They are in the process of investigating if that would be possible to have a mixed age classroom so that it could be pre-K, and want to be very careful proceeding with that so that the funding streams can actually be braided together, and nobody's going to say, oh, why are you using ECEC funds in a classroom that has K students, or vice versa. So I just reached out to someone in our policy department to obtain some assistance with that, because I have heard the PED encouraging public schools to open up early childhood programs and to have pre-K programs. So how are the others doing that? And there's probably not some regular public schools that are Montessori, which is unique, and as we know, has mixed grades. That is the Montessori model. So I am anticipating some support for this school to get some answers about how the funding can be rated, but I see no problems as is right now. And I invite commissioners to go to their website and you can see the lottery processes and forums yourself.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you, Montessori Elementary School team, for coming up here today. Any questions about this specific item underneath the charter school director's report?
Right.
Thank you.
So we will move on to the update on Cesar Chavez and the use of the building. So last month I presented on a lot of information about Cesar Chavez and the fact that the school has in fact moved towards more in-person experiences at the school. And just this week, I was able to visit Cesar Chavez as part of their renewal visit and witness that the school opened up its doors. All the adults that support the students, the head administrator, the social worker, the SPED co-directors, teachers, staff, were at the school when it opened up and students were present. Now, they are operating a hybrid program so that some students are online and some students are in person. They do offer students that choice. The building was being used. They had food available for students. They had snacks available for students. Was every single classroom packed full of kids? No. They have a really pretty low student to adult ratio. And I know this wasn't the ask. I think the ask was, do they require the kids to put the cameras on during the Zoom classroom? And the answer is no, they do not. However, we dug pretty deeply into the levels of engagement for students, and I feel confident that the school is doing a very good job with student engagement. They utilize multiple modalities to do that. In Zoom chat, the teacher is able to have a private conversation with students or group conversations with the whole class. Both the teachers and the students articulated how important that one-to-one engagement was. Of note, there's also not any bullying going on at this school, because the kids are not in peer situations that might lend itself to that, because of the way that they're operating. They also use Google Classroom to have conversations, and they meet in person and use phone calls. The instruction itself during the online courses use things like those little Post-its that go online. I forgot what it's called.
Jamboard or
Jamboard, thank you. Jamboards and other shared documents where the teachers were able to look for student engagement, request students participate, engage very quickly in that. So I feel like the school is doing student engagement. They are opening the school building. They are increasing the number of in-person courses. I don't have concerns about the school in that regard. And the head administrator of that school said that if they did not have parent, teacher, student conferences today, she would be here, but I don't think she's in the audience. Is that right? She's not in the audience because today she was meeting with parents and students to do the sessions where they provide a lot of really rich information about student progress at the school. I also meant to mention that they do a really good job of tracking attendance and through their system.
Thank you. I wanted to just mention to commissioners that I did receive an email a couple of days ago that's also in the record too, from Miss Arnis. It's item number 11B. And so it does stipulate, it does share exactly how they're using the building, and it's, you know, they are utilizing the full facility. Commissioner Armijo.
I just was wondering what the student enrollment is right now. If you know.
We have that in part A of the renewal report.
End of year enrollment was 144 students.
Any other questions, commissioners, on this item from the Charter School Director's report? Commissioner Creo.
So I was just glancing at vistas, and whether it's this school or any other, it's just when attendance rates and proficiency rates are consistently so low, it's incumbent, I think it's incumbent upon us, and I know there's a special population there and everything else, but it's still, especially relative to growth, I think it's incumbent upon us to make that hard decision. Does this school continue operating? And I'm not singling out CSR Chavez right now, I'm just saying any school that is consistently that low. There's just a point at which it is taxpayer dollars. And, we have made kind of being on this commission a solemn promise to educate. To see that kids are educated or young adults are educated.
Commissioner, I just want to say, I want to interject, I hear where you're going with this, and we're talking about the use of the building today, and I just want to make sure.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay, done.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're being fair to schools and, we didn't bring up, we were going to talk about their VISTA scores or anything like that. And we were just talking specifically about their building use. We're going to go ahead and do item number C if you're ready.
Turn it over to Deputy Director Russell.
Chair Brower, Commissioners, CSD's target for finalizing annual reports is to have them on the agenda at the PEC January meeting. So to have them to schools 30 days prior to that. And we will work with the schools in the coming weeks to finalize all of the organizational and financial ratings. And once the data are finalized, then we'll work with them on making sure that everything in the report is correct. And if that takes longer than a month, we can have organizational and financial reports in January and academic ones in February. I'm fingers crossed for all three sections in January, though.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I was just wondering if the commission would want CSD to present all annual reports in January.
It would be so hard to do.
Yeah, well, I think we could talk about it in EC. So, but in general, I would say no, it's way too many schools at once. We're going to be discussing and talking about.
Right, I'll just put placeholders in 2 months.
Thank you. Anything else? Director Chavez? All right, commissioners, going to move on to item number 12. Report from the chair. I just have a few things here. Item A, Julia has decided not to attend the meeting in person. She will be attending Zoom meetings and any webinars that are going to be happening. We did, and I wanted to acknowledge my conversations with Deputy Secretary DeBell and Director Chavez in figuring out the best laid plan that we could put together. And it just wasn't feasible for Julia to move forward on that. And so just wanted to give everyone the notice that she will be attending through Zoom and things of that nature. Commissioner Correa.
Why? If you wanted to attend, and I'm assuming that you may have wanted to attend in person, Julia, and because you're then able to meet with colleagues between sessions and talk about different things. Why?
Not being able to be reimbursed for the amount of.
Why? Because she works with us, we've hired her. What is, why?
Similar to what we talked about in the last meeting, Commissioner Creo and commissioners, there is the, I would say, absolute belief that we cannot reimburse contractors for out-of-state work or work that is relative to learning. What we did talk about with the team here is to pay contracted hourly wages to Julia to be present for the meetings in Oakland. That does not count travel to and back or airfare or the other items that are cost prohibitive for her to go in person. And so when we did, Julia and I talked about this. We talked about what would it actually look like to get reimbursed for the time on task for the time that she'd be going to meetings, even if it was 8 hours per day for the 2 days of the sessions that she would go to. It still wouldn't be enough to supplement how much it would cost to get an airfare and to reimburse for the actual amount to go to the conference. So,
all right, I understand what you're saying, and the documents are not. I could probably go back to last month. But I specifically remember language that said may a couple of times. You used the word absolute, so no, I don't believe it's absolute. because of the language and the way it was written in their response declining the request. It seemed like there was a big gray area, and it's just something that they didn't feel like they wanted to do. So I want to know in the future, how do we get around this? How do we move past this so that whether it's Julia or whoever our counsel may be, because there's no question that being there, and especially in Julia's role as our counsel, to be able to meet with other attorneys, because on Zoom's great. You're going to be on the class and do whatever, and it's an hour and a half. But a lot of the stuff that happens, as you well know, happens between sessions when you can sit down and talk with a small group about how they're doing stuff. So I think this is not acceptable. And this is just another reason why we need to be separate from the PED.
Commissioner Ingham, make sure you speak into your microphone.
Okay, so I think what at least I've come down is the anti-donation clause that they're referencing as being the reason. And I think I agree with Stephen. I don't think that's settled doctrine, and that I think that we really need to have clarification about that. And I think that because one department's opinion of that doctrine, I think it needs to be reevaluated and pushed to a higher level. Because I think that I agree with Stephen. It does seem like we are being bullied in that regard. And I just can't really, I don't like it. I have to admit that.
So I think there's two things. I'm just going to say something real quick. I heard you. I think that there is two things. I hear what you're saying. I wish we had a way to do that. And that the other thing is, I don't want to be on the hook to say, Julia, you must go, and then you're not going to be reimbursed. I think that's unfair and bad practice for the commission to do. And so when it comes down to that, I'm not going to make Julia pay out of pocket. And so there's two things that we're talking about here. It's like, and I did use absolute, Commissioner, because there was not a part of my bones that think that she was going to get reimbursed. Even if it said may, it was not going to happen. Vice Chair Burke.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in just looking into it for next year. Because I mean, we pay Naomi to fly out here, and she's a contractor. I've paid contractors to fly. Like when I worked at PED, I had out-of-state contractors we paid for their travel all the time. So it is mildly confusing. So it'd be good, like, just we have time until like maybe then when the contract's renewed for July, or like we talk about it a little bit more and figure out a solution to make it work, because it's not quite. Like, I think we're just in a time crunch, so not stressed about it like for this year, but to make it make sense for next year would be great.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, I think at least on the short term, the MOU, take a look at the MOU and try to figure out language that maybe we could, because I agree with everything, but it's just, it's extraordinarily unfortunate that we're sitting in this position, but it's not an unusual position, sad to say.
Another question.
Commissioner Creo.
Ms. Burt, why is Naomi's a contractor? Why do we get to pay it? And I would never, ever, for the record, insist that where our attorney go, and knowing full well I would never, ever support anything like that. But it's just like, I mean, when it came up with DeBell, Deputy Secretary DeBell, was it brought up that, hey, we have other contractors that travel for us and comes, yes. So I want this worked through. It's just so asinine that yeah.
All right. No. I can still, I don't think that Serena was going to talk. Yeah. Yeah. She did, but I could see that she was not on this stage. Okay, so item number B. I know I discussed the Great Academy last time. We have been continuing conversations with them throughout the last month, and we're waiting for some additional support with some data to continue to work with them in good ways through their process that we're doing with their current contract. I also wanted to share that there is, and Bridget, add some fluff to what I'm about to say if I forget some things, but we do have one school that is up for renewal, Southwest Learning, and their current administrator, he received when we were going to have they come up in December, and that entire week he is on leave, he's on vacation to see his family. He asked CSD if the PEC would be willing to hear something prior to December if we wanted to do something in November instead. We don't have to do everything in December, knowing how super busy it is in December too. I can see both ways. I don't think we have to take a vote, but I wanted to throw this out during my time, if that would be okay for us to hear this school in November. They are very aware that that means we got to hustle more on some of the paperwork and the items that we need from them in order to move forward. We also know that there's a backup plan. If there is not consensus, they can still have their GC, other staff here representing. This is just something that, in good faith, I wanted to ask the PEC if we would be willing to hear the school for their renewal in November as opposed to December when we see everyone else. Did I forget anything? Is that the whole?
Chair Brower, yes, that's the whole thing. And I did let the head administrator know that there may not be time for the official letter and the school response. They would have to just accept the preliminary as their final. And it is a spotlight school. I don't foresee any problem, and neither does the head administrator.
Commissioner Gibson.
I mean, we did do this when we had that horrific round of 15 or 17. We put an offer out there for schools. I mean, no one took us up on it because they were concerned about the fact that they may not get all the pieces of the information that they wanted. There was a level of discomfort for them. So, but we did. So I have no problem with it but there has to be that understanding that they may not get all the pieces of the puzzle before they come up, but we have tried it before.
All right, so are we okay with, do we have a consensus on moving that forward? Okay, so when the EC and CSD's leadership we meet, we'll organize that in good fashion so that we'll do this school in November. Julie, did you have something to ask?
I just was checking the November date. So we're certain Vista's coming out before November 16th. So the November 17th meeting. So you would
Yes.
have all Vista data.
Well, no, we won't have Vista. I mean, we may not, we will not have 22-23 Vista's data by the time the school has its hearing. But we're not guaranteed that we'll have final Vista's data for all schools by November 17th. I mean, that's the target date right now.
Okay.
All right, so one other Commissioner Creo.
I'm sorry. So yesterday, and maybe I just got to get my ears checked. Yesterday, I thought I heard that we are going to have all the data by November 16th. So the data that maybe look, oh my God, it's like you're on fire though with that glare.
Data is released, it's certified on the 16th. Is it put into a final report created especially for the PEC? Probably not. So,
Okay.
but we will have it. It'll be released. So
We won't see it in Vistas, but we can see it in other places.
no, you will see it in Vistas, but we won't have a final report. I think what Julia was getting at is, will CSD be able to create all of the reports exactly the same as we would if, yeah, and the answer is no. And so in a way, this is the school agreeing to have a decision by the PEC with preliminary information available to them, not the exact same report that everybody else is getting December 1.
just for the record, I was not asking CSD to do that. I was trying to confirm that there would be Vista data.
So the reason I hedged is because the CSD is not in control of Vista's data. And the CSD kept saying last year, this is when we'll have data, this is when we'll have data. And things internal to PED in REA, which are beyond CSD's control, things changed. And so I don't want commissioners to say, but CSD promised, but CSD, that is what we've been told. I'm looking right now, can't share it with you, but at the school in question, I'm looking at their embargo data, which is their proficiencies are all higher than the state average. And embargo data sometimes changes in minute ways, but all 3 academic subject areas where the school.
Yeah, we probably, since it's embargo, we probably shouldn't.
Right.
In public, so.
But we haven't even named the school.
If we talk about the school in November, I think we can say that.
My point was that CSD doesn't have concerns about the school.
Sure. And great. So what we'll do, what I'm hearing from the group, we'll play it by ear a little bit with the data. I don't think we need to, I think if we have the information, we'll make it happen. The school also we're going to go with the plan to have them in November, barring any issue with the data that we may not have. To your point, Commissioner Carrillo, I don't want to do a preliminary or any type of thing that we feel like we don't feel comfortable with making decisions completely in November. And so as long as the school knows, that's not going to be on the PEC or on the charter school division, but based on the data gods, if we don't receive that information, we'll probably have to do it in December. That's where my mind is going.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, we will have the data. Okay, let me just push it. Will we have data for 22-23 school year on which to make our decisions relative to renewals?
And for this school in particular in November, like that's what I'm talking about. I would feel if we have the data that's released, that's disembargoed, to make a decision in November, I think we should do that. I felt like there was some trepidation that maybe if we didn't have that information, could we do that? But maybe or do we feel like no matter what the data is available to us, we want to move forward?
So yeah, that's why I was gonna say, I think it's up to the school, because honestly, to be frank, there's a chance we don't have 22-23 data for any school, even in December. So I'm not gonna stress about having it or not having it. If the school says we'd like to opt into November, whatever we have at that time, we'll make a decision based off of. And same thing in December, whatever we have in December, we'll make a decision off of. They can't control it, we can't control it, the school can't control it. So I'm not gonna stress about it. So yeah, I think if the school says, yes, whatever information you have, even if it's the day we show up and we got new information, we can look at that, and the school will have to acknowledge that we may have new information that they are seeing at the same time as us. And that's what they're gonna go with. So I don't care either way. I'm okay with it being in November. And if the data's released, great. If it's not, great. It's either way. I'm not gonna stress about it because we're gonna have to do the same thing in December, and we're not gonna delay the December one, so.
True. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where we are on that. So if we're good with that, we'll, if you don't mind telling the school that, Commissioner Carrillo, any final?
Yeah, I'm not good with any of this. I'm not going to stress about it. I leave here and I don't stress about it. But right now, I'm angry about this, that we can't get data for 22-23 for just really straight till I can just go in my computer, bring something up. This is the data. This is what I'm going to base my partially what I'm going to base my renewal decision on. Not okay at all. That's all.
All right, one other thing I wanted to mention here underneath school issues. I think over the last couple weeks, this just came up, and I'm just going to ask the commission just for just a little bit of support in this. I know that sometimes individual commissioners receive an email or outreach of a school in your district, and then sometimes we receive emails from and some individuals send out emails to all of us. And it sometimes feels like we, it's a little bit of trying to figure out if they have have talked to all of us. And so that this happened in this last month. And so if you're ever in doubt, wondering what to do when a constituent reaches out about a specific school, just connect with me. I'd love to talk about it. Many of you did, and many of you sent emails as well. And that way we can kind of know like what the outreach is going to be around certain things. And so you all did the right things. I talked to many of you about this over the last week or so. And it would just be good, at least from my angle. I've spent a lot of time on this specific school already, and have worked with the PED on issues that have been arisen, but sometimes the loop isn't always closed with all the commissioners. So if you do receive an email from somebody and you're curious, just send that to me. Send that to Karina if it's about a school, so that we can kind of make some decisions. Does that sound okay? Great. All right. And the last thing for my report is the public charter schools in New Mexico.
All right, thank you, Chair Brower, Commissioners. Karina and Bridget, appreciate you guys having me today. I first wanted to start out by, congratulating PCS&M on CSP grant, that $52 million, which is almost double what it was the last 5 years. And just by listening to everything going on, one of the things this is going to help is cut down on the bureaucracy of getting things passed. So when PCS&M has their application process, the schools filled it out, that they've been approved, the schools are going to be able to get that money in a much quicker turnaround time than having to go through a state agency. And that's a big benefit to these schools. When we look at where this money is going to be going, right now, over the 5 years, we're looking at 9 new schools getting this money, and they can apply for up to $2 million. Expansion schools is 17. So let's say they want to go, let's say they have a 6th through 12th school and they want to go in elementary, that would be an expansion, is getting that elementary school part of that. So that's the expansion. Replication, which we discussed a little bit yesterday, we put in there 2 for 2 schools to get replicated. Don't know if that will happen at all in the next 5 years, but at least it's on there to have some money available for schools who do want to go through that process. Something else PCS&M is going through right now is the legislative, because we know the legislative session's coming up very quickly, and trying to prioritize what we want to see. So first is the revolving loan for charter school expansion, is adding more money to that revolving loan. And I want to say that I think PCS&M is going to shoot for like $20 million more for that revolving loan. We will also continue to continue to pursue a funding mechanism for the adult ed programming within our K-12 schools. And if some of you may not remember, but when it was a couple of years ago, that got cut as the adult ed program got cut out of charter schools, and it really was it's been a big impact. And supposedly it went to higher ed, but and I know they're working to do a good job there, but I think that's the K through 12 schools have been doing this for many years, and were very good at what they were doing. And to cut them out was so anyway, that I don't know if it's still going to be like pushing a rope, but we're going to try to do that. Just like the small school funding, the small school funding, pretty much dead. We don't even like to use that word, small school funding. So looking at other terms, but still those small schools need funding. And that's just the way it is. They need to have more funding, or they are going to shut down. There's not going to be a point of having to worry about renewal. Schools aren't going to have enough funding to survive. And what I'm talking about is schools that are under 200 kids aren't going to have enough money very soon, because this last year was the last year for small school funding. Yeah, that is another thing. Yeah, we're running out of ESSER money. We're running out of all these other funding sources that we've had for the last year and a half, 2 years. All those funds will also be gone. So that's why going to the legislators and saying, okay, look, something has to. I know the LEFC study committee has been looking at what can we do for small school funding to help. And it's just not the rural small schools that are being impacted. It's schools in downtown Albuquerque that are helping a specific group of students that they are affected by the loss of the small school funding also. So that's something PCS&M will be looking into. One of the other things is, and many times the commissioners, you guys have talked about that, is the flexibility of the 2% funding. Finding out what can, if it's not all being used, can some of that money go back to the schools? Even a small amount, it would help the small schools greatly. This is one of the last ones. If possible, we are asking to pursue our bill that makes locally authorized charter schools their own board of finance, ensuring that all charters get funding directly from PED and are eligible for all opportunities. Okay, so that would be a big deal also. So you wouldn't have to go through those levels of bureaucracy that were seem to be slowing everything down. That and frustrates everybody. I know everybody gets frustrated with that. So, yes, Alan.
Yeah, I would just mention that I love that idea. I also think about an unintended consequence of what Vista Grande had to go through, and now they don't have now they are their own board of finance, and now they're not eligible for other reasons for funding because they don't have a history of different things, especially within the title funds and other things like that. And so really, in my mind, I know you guys are probably already thinking about that, but that's just something that I thought about when we've seen charter schools move from district authorized to state. There's still an issue about a barrier for them to make sure that they're kept whole and are able to take advantage of what you just shared. Not a year or so from now, but like immediately.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, yes. Yeah, good. Next month, PCS&M will have their annual conference at the Tamaya Resort starting November 28th, I believe it starts, and goes through the 1st of December. So we would love to see commissioners there. And right now we're already pretty much booked at the hotel, and we have overflow. So we have a pretty good turnout right now. The agenda is if the Tamaya and Bernalillo. Talk to Angela. She's pretty good at, but yeah. Yeah, the overflow is at the other casino right outside what is that casino? Santa Ana Star. Yeah. So really like to see commissioners there. It should be a good conference.
Commissioner Ingham.
So I did want to just talk about the legislative agenda, and there's a couple things that I want to make sure that we I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand. It's just I'm trying to read the same thing. The one, creating an intercept of fundings with the PSCOC. I don't quite understand what that methodology is, and I really think I need to. And then also, I just want to ask, can we have the verbiage that we're going to be trying to present to the LEFC and the LFC on hopefully as soon as possible, so we can do whatever we can to make sure that those end up on the agenda. I think that I know, talking to Matt, that he already has a sponsor, and so I'm hoping that we can just make sure we have enough time to do the encouraging that we need to do. So can you tell me what the interceptive funding, how that works?
I can't go into all the details on that, but I can tell you that all that verbiage and everything will be ready for next month's meeting. So all of that information will be written out. And so I don't want to say exactly what it's going, because I'm not 100% sure. Matt is working on that right now. But they would like, this is like, right now, charter schools cannot borrow money. And one of the obstacles about not borrowing money is the lease reimbursement. Is it says a school, the state may provide lease reimbursement. Well, we want to get rid of that may and say shall. You know, I mean, just one single word right there. When a loan company is like, what do you mean? They may, so they may not. You know, so but now we're gonna propose that change to shall, that they shall provide lease reimbursement. So that's a big deal right there. We all know that if you're on a 5-year and that's the maximum that many years is a renewal that we can go in New Mexico, banks are going to be like, you mean after 5 years, you're not going to, you have the potential of not being around? And yes. So a lot of organizations don't want to loan money on a 5-year note. And especially when, like you said yesterday, at $1,000 a square foot, you're not going to be able to build a very big building. So it's those issues. So charter schools need to be able to secure and borrow money like regular public schools can. And that's where the charter schools are really working hard, is to try to get the same borrowing power as the regular public schools.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And congratulations again. Oh,
I just wanted to thank Vicki, because she's coordinated a meeting with the LCPS superintendent. We're going to sit down and have a discussion about facilities.
Awesome.
And you know, what it looks like. And because, as many of you know, LCPS is the landlord for most of the charter schools in Las Cruces. So, and leases are probably starting to expire. So we're getting ahead of it and looking at what the future looks like with those leases. And if there's any schools that, I think there's a couple schools that are looking to see if they could, I don't think expand is a good time to do it in terms of construction, but they're looking at it. So thanks, Star, for that.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate you. All right. Let's move on to item number 13, discussion and possible action to provide input to chair or liaisons to speak on behalf of the PC. Are there any items that we needed for that? Okay, let's move on to item number 14, PEC comments. This is an opt-in. We don't have to hear from everyone, but we want to make sure we invite everyone to share any item that might be on their mind. No discussion or action will be taken during this time. Commissioner Gibson.
I just wanted to thank Raíces del Saber Sinochley Community School down in my district. They invited me to their open house, so I was able to go, and it was a fun little event.
Great, thank you. I have 2 items. First and foremost, I am so sorry to say I won't be able to be at the NACSA conference next week. It's the last week of the farm season, so my 7 days a week will be over, sadly, October 30th. I wish it was done this weekend, but it's just not in the cards. And so I just want to acknowledge my absence, but it's not because I don't want to be there. It's because I physically cannot. On that same note, I have a plentiful harvest on the table in front of us. Apologies, Cindy and commissioners, for you not being able to partake in this, but I have some beautiful watermelon and some cantaloupe here don't be bashful, take some. I'll also find homes in other places. Everyone in the galley too, you can grab some stuff. So go home with full pockets for sure. Anything else? All right, let's move on to item number 15, discussion of new business topics for the next agenda. One of the things I'm going to do better this time, and I want to own this completely, is that we can do, if there is an item, we're gonna hear a second from a commissioner. That way we don't have to do any emails of seconds. We can just look back at the record and see that this is something that was seconded that we can put onto the agenda. So I'll be much better if I forget doing that. But as we talk about things, please let me know. But that's one of the things that I wanted to share. Yeah, Karina was whispering to me about we're going to should we take the exact wording or the spirit. I think we'll work with the commissioners if we have any questions about something that might be on the record, and if they feel okay about making adjustments on that. All right. Any items for the agenda?
I have something.
Commissioner Manus, go ahead.
I would like to see a work session item on food service at charter schools.
Second.
Great. So we're going to have Commissioner Manus, like a review of the school lunch services. Is that right?
I know there's been legislation that was passed in this last legislative session regarding universal free lunch and breakfast. However, I believe with discussion with Director Chavez that there's, I guess, provisions or maybe certain things that maybe that's not necessarily happening at charter schools. And so I just think it would be, I also learned some things in that discussion that I was kind of surprised about. And so I just think it would be good for us to have a better understanding of what the standard is, what is expected.
So Commissioner Manus, so having somebody from that team to come over and do an overview, is that what you were thinking in a work session?
Yeah, I think it should start with the work session, but I think it may lead into something else. If the conversation that Director Chavez and I had, that what was talked about was that some charter schools don't even offer lunch to their kids, and I just find that that's ridiculous. So yeah, I think that something needs to happen. I think a work session is the start of it, but if we need to put that in a in future contract and consider that for later on, I just want to at least learn more about what is the standard, what's expected, because if to me, state law and what was signed into law, especially in the last legislative session, schools should be following that law. So I just want to learn more. I think because whenever I found that information out, I was really surprised, quite frankly.
Absolutely. And I agree with you on that. And now that it is universal, I think we may have to think about some statutory changes too, so that that's no longer a waiver or an option for charter schools. And that's something that will probably be a little bit more of a discussion, but I think having the initial kind of like overview of both the new law that was Senate Bill 4, how that's progressing this year, and how we can make sure that our charter schools are supporting their students in the best possible way. Commissioner Creo.
I would add to that possible action. So not just work session, but if we all decide on something that we want to take action on, that it'll also be on the agenda for the Friday. Is that okay with you, KT?
Most definitely.
Generally, we do things where if we talk about something one day, we don't vote on it the next day. So generally, it's introduced one month and then can be voted on the next month. So
Sometimes it has a first and second reading and all that stuff. Yeah, whatever. Just
so for next
sure
month,
we're
it's
exercising
just
the
work
options
session
available to us.
and then
okay.
For the record, we're going to likely, I don't know if I need to say this, but we'll be working with Southwest Learning to have their renewal on the upcoming agenda. In
Didn't
November.
you? Where would it be? Okay. Weren't you gonna have something? I can't remember. I wrote a note that said new school. We mentioned it yet. You mentioned it yesterday that you were gonna make sure that it was on the November agenda. So I just wrote down new school as a reminder. I can't remember. Something procedurally.
I think it was CSD is going to propose language for replication of a model in a new application.
Oh, that was it.
And I just have added that because I think that CSD has asked for the new application to be on there, particularly for the budget. So there's just a couple of items.
Thank you, Julia. And then I have
Heather,
some, oh,
Go ahead.
somebody else, Heather?
Go ahead. You saw the floor.
A methodology to review annual reports. Because as it was stated earlier, we can't possibly get 58 of them all at once and talk about them. So how are we going to review annual reports? And then I remember we discussed a while ago, not putting somebody on an action plan, but having that letter or the something that's before that. So really, the methodology for reviewing the annual report and for sending out the letter if we have performance concerns.
second.
Great. So we have a second on that. Thank you. Any other items right now, knowing that you have up until the Tuesday prior to the meeting to provide us additional by just emailing me? Seeing no others, I'm going to have us go ahead and move on. Hold on. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Madam Secretary, can you go ahead and do a roll call vote for us?
Chair Brower,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burt,
Yes.
Chair Mijo votes yes. Commissioner Ingham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klasicevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Manus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Carrillo.
Yes.
That passes 8-0.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We are adjourned. Don't forget about the melons.